just quickly say, Cara, thank you very much for having us, and thank you for hosting this. Kerry's going to do the presentation. She'll do most of the questions and answers, or the answers, but I can come in if required, if specific. But over to you. Sorry, Jane, your hand's up again. Or else you haven't taken it down. I don't know what's happened there. No, your hand's still up, but everything else is gone. Kerry, carry on with the presentation.
Of course. Well, good evening, colleagues. Thank you so much, as John says, for welcoming us to your event. I've got a presentation which should take between 20 and 30 minutes. I'll try to go at pace without losing some of the detail. It's sectioned into explaining a little about the context and what is devolution. We move on to some of the ambitions, priorities and benefits within the proposal from government. We then cover governance, and then we're going to follow that with how you can get involved and how you can express your opinions in terms of next steps. So that's the outline of the event. So hopefully that will give you some framework as we go through. So Cara, if I could ask the next slide, please. Thank you. So devolution is not unique to Devon and Torbay. Essentially, what this has been about as a policy is bringing to the local democratic leadership centralised powers and funding. It means that we would have greater control, greater opportunity to direct those resources and those powers to help support what we believe are the local priorities for our part of the world. So it enables bringing that decision making closer to home, closer to local people. And we'll touch on some of that principle in terms of how it would operate under the governance piece in this presentation. So in terms of the next slide, please, Cara. I sound like Mr. Whitty, aren't I, throughout this? So national context is that devolution already exists in quite a large part of the population in England. About 60% is now covered under the devolution arrangement of some shape, size or variety. Government's ambition is that there will be a devolved arrangement by 2030 across England. Obviously, devolved administrations in Scotland and Wales are a little different. This is a little bit formulaic in parts. I think John and I would be honest enough to say that. And it's been set out in a framework that government provided in its Levelling Up white paper, which has subsequently been passed as legislation in the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act. But for us, it's about having a combined county authority. It's a level 2 deal. If you've heard it expressed in terms of numbers, we are a level 2. And what that essentially means is we are not proposing a mayor. So this for us is a proposal to set up a combined county authority to be responsible for those central functions, those central powers, central resources that are going to be passed down to us at a local level to apply to our local priorities. So the next slide, please, Cara. So partly covered this in terms of the Levelling Up white paper, and the proposal is that we're working on is a level 2. Mayoralties are either level 3s or 4s if you're interested, and we're in good company. So Devon and Torbay's proposal was announced shortly after Lancashire's, which is a combination of unitary authorities as well as county councils. And our near neighbours, Cornwall, are now proceeding with a level 2, and that was announced in the budget in November last year. The menu of powers is set out in the Levelling Up white paper, and largely what our proposal represents, which I'll run through, is that framework of opportunity, although we have been able to stretch it and extend it in certain places. And as Cara mentioned in the introduction, the proposal from government was signed with the Levelling Up Minister on the 25th of January in Paignton. So next slide, please. So one of the tests that government has always applied to an area to come forward with a devolution proposition is scale and having a sensible geography. Devon and Torbay, obviously we do have scale, just shy of 1 million people in terms of population, but we also have a large economy, 17 billion contribution to the national gross value added productivity sums. That means that we're larger than Cornwall. The population certainly is comparable to west of England, but we also have an economy that is similar to, say, Liverpool and some of the other devolved administrations. The numbers of jobs and our business and the value of our sectors obviously is various compared to other areas, which we'll come on and talk about in terms of some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that we hope to release through this devolution arrangement. But certainly we are a functional economic area and we have scale. Sorry, Cara. Next one, thank you. So some of these challenges are well rehearsed, be very familiar to you on this call, and they are a snapshot. They're not that, there are other challenges that we might have referred to, but broadly speaking, and in no particular order, housing. We have a significant housing crisis in our part of the world. Given our tourism sector, we have very short numbers of rental accommodation, and our average wages are below the national average, which means that affordability gap for our communities is significant, and you will know that as well as anyone. That's true whether you're living in an urban part of Devon and Torbay or whether you're in a rural or coastal location. We also have significant pockets of deprivation, and again, they are within wards in Exeter, towns such as Ilfracombe, or whole districts such as Torridge, and why Torridge has a Levelling Up Places programme. Our productivity is only about 70% of the national average, which means that we have a loss of income circulating in our local economy that other economies can benefit from. We also have significant skills and education performance, which is variable, not in all parts of our area, and some of that does tend to lead to the brain drain, a lot of our youngsters not being able to pursue their chosen career or profession locally, and that youth aspiration and social mobility are significant for our part of the world. Next slide, please, Cara. So on the flip side, we do have a number of opportunities. We have a diverse business base made up of some large employers, but 98% of the Devon economy is made up of small or micro businesses. So we do have some entrepreneurial flair. We have a number of sectoral strengths that we feel that we can take forward in a better arrangement with government, being able to influence and have direct conversations with a number of government departments. Those sectors span everything from advanced manufacturing and engineering through to our bedrock sectors of food, farming, fishing, but also tourism and hospitality. We have a growing pharmaceutical cluster in the north part of Devon, and with our demography and ageing population, we also have potential innovation to offer around digital health and life sciences, and similar on digital, looking at agri-tech and some of the innovations that we can bring forward to our traditional sectors. As already said, we are a functional economic area. That doesn't mean that our local economy doesn't extend into our borders, Cornwall, Somerset, Dorset even, but we are as a coherent area in terms of our economy, whether it's our housing market or our travel to learn or our travel to work area, broadly speaking, Devon and Torbay fulfills that geographical context. So next slide, please. So we're going to move on away from some of the background into the ambitions. Put simply, we want to raise levels of prosperity, for that to feel inclusive across our geography. That means working together to be more competitive on the national stage for that engagement with government, looking to improve our business performance, our skills outcomes, and to look at how we obviously move within our economy, thinking about local transport. So I'm going to dive into some of the benefits of the deal. So we'll come back to some of the ways in which we will achieve those ambitions. So we set out in our proposal 6 key, quite high level priorities. So it is about maximising that economic potential, taking forward those opportunities, recognising where we have some core strengths, supporting our businesses through local talent, local skilled workforce. It is also about addressing those housing pressures that we were referring to as a significant challenge, alongside improving how people travel to work or travel to learn or stay connected through our local transport system. We have a climate emergency, we have a Devon carbon plan, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and as partners have signed up to helping us achieve those net zero ambitions, and that's a significant priority within the deal, as is delivering new investment. And the deal does come with an additional 16 million of capital as a one-off, and as a platform to build as we move forward with the next comprehensive spending review. So in essence, this is all about driving that stronger and more sustainable local economy, building in that resilience. So next slide, please, Cara. So if going through the benefits, these are a quick summary, and we'll go into each of those in a little bit more depth. So this deal will bring with us a new way of engaging with Homes England and DLUC to address that housing crisis. It also gives us powers and investment from the Department for Education, and that provides us with opportunities around training. It also takes the power, the new combined authority will take our local transport authority power, not our highways authority power, but our local transport authority power, which is about planning, and that allows us to operate in a more coordinated fashion and engage better across the peninsula and indeed with the Department for Transport. The benefit also is to bring more local jobs around that green sector, and that's the 16 million will help us to decide how to do that better. It's about taking those decisions locally by local people, and obviously moving towards increasing productivity. In terms of the real value of the proposal, one might argue that this is about influence. It's being sat at the top table with government. It's about arguing our case alongside other combined authority areas, not necessarily having to compete for small scale investment, but having those strategic conversations with government departments and government agencies. Next slide, please, Cara. So the Combined County Authority will become the lead body in terms of our economic growth proposals and priorities, working closely with all partners, including yourselves. It is about creating those job opportunities, drawing down investment. It's also about picking up the functions of the Local Enterprise Partnership when it closes at the end of next month. Those functions will initially be held by Devon and Torbay councils, and once the Combined County Authority is established, they will transfer into the new County Combined Authority. It also brings future opportunities. We are engaging with all of the government departments in establishing this proposal, so it means that we will have a direct relationship with the Department for Business and Trade, as an example, and a direct relationship with the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, and in terms of tourism, quite importantly, the Department of Digital, Media, Culture and Sport. I think I got that slightly the wrong way around. But it gives us that influence to become the economic lead authority for our part of the world. Next slide, please. So in terms of skills and some of the detail, the Combined Authority will benefit from being in charge of and having the funding through the adult education budget. This allows us to direct that where we know we have skills gaps, where our businesses are telling us they have difficulty in recruiting certain staff with certain qualifications or skill sets. It is worth about £15 million per annum. And there would be an administrative budget as well that comes with that, but that's actually direct money for delivery. It's also about working with the Department of Work and Pensions into ensuring that we have influence over their national programmes, And one of those, which isn't included in the programme from government because they've offered it since we put the proposal together, is to actually be the body responsible for delivering universal support. So that's very much bringing people back into the labour market, upskilling and retraining where possible. Technical skills is a conversation that's live. We already have some really good track record of delivering technical qualifications and skills. So we want to be able to add to that and build on the investment that we can bring into the area. And obviously vocational training is paramount to growing our sectors. So working with the National Apprenticeship Service and some of the vocational training as well. Next slide, please. So housing, what we have negotiated in the proposal is a joint investment pipeline working with Department of Levelling Up, but also Homes England. So this isn't necessarily money passported to us or even to our district authorities who very much retain the housing lead, the housing function. This is about us directing those national opportunities to support what we require locally. So co-designed means that we're working with district councils as the leads, being able to work through what our absolute housing requirements are, where they are needed, and then working with Homes England to draw that investment down to district authorities to take forward. It will absolutely build on the Housing Commission, the work that the Devon Housing Task Force are overseeing. And there's a direct recognition in the proposal that government will take note of the recommendations, which again gives us another platform on which to engage on the housing conversation. I mentioned the 16 million. Our intention is to put 8 million, circa 8 million together in that business case to government to see how we can drive that forward in terms of supporting small net zero green housing projects. And then there are live conversations happening about access to the Brownfield Land Release Fund and the Affordable Housing Funds, pots that other combined authorities, other devolved administrations have ready access to, which Devon and Torbay have been precluded from accessing directly, and rather we have to go through a competitive process. So next slide, please. So I mentioned the Combined County Authority becoming the local transport authority. That means that the county and Torbay will pass its powers into the Combined County Authority, but very much working alongside colleagues on this call and our district partners to ensure that there is that still strong engagement in terms of local transport planning. The opportunities are there to do through ticketing, to look at how we grow the Devon Metro programme of work and how we can do more about active cycle and walking networks. By having that single plan, that single coordinated approach, we believe that we will be able to put more investment into that transport planning function and ultimately improve our connectivity. We won't be doing that in isolation. We'll still be working with Peninsular Subnational Transport Board, recognising that you can't deliver transport in a small location. We're a peninsula after all said and done, and we need to work with our neighbours. So next slide, please. So in terms of net zero, the balance of the 16 million we want to put to good use to help businesses develop their own greener business practices through capital grants or something similar. And again, working with our further education, higher education colleagues, upskilling around the green agenda. We're also engaging directly with the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, developing proposals around heat networks as an example, working alongside DEFRA around regenerative farming and carbon capture and opportunities for us to become net zero as we set out in our climate emergency prospectus. The CCA will have a convening role and potentially a funding role as we're able to negotiate additional investment to come down to the local area. And a significant part of our net zero ambitions and conversations with government are around retrofitting of our housing stock, obviously supporting households to be energy efficient, but also looking at how we can grow our green infrastructure, whether it's around ports or whether it's around other forms of green infrastructure such as hydrogen and the energy network. So next slide, please. So in a quick summary, these are the immediate benefits. It is a start. It is a start of a much firmer, deeper conversation and engagement with national government. So the 16 million additional funding, control of the adult education budget, rolling in of the LEP functions. It also is the continuation of whatever happens with the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. That will also fall to the Combined County Authority over time. So as the slide said, it's very much a platform for further devolution over time. So next slide, I think, means that we're going to be moving on to the joys of governance. So the principles on the left-hand side are the ones that government have set out for us, which we agree with, but we have also added five of our own. Devolution for us is all about partnership with local councils, partnerships with our district councils, partnerships with our businesses, partnerships with our education and skills providers. It's about thinking how we can make this inclusive with everyone having an input. We are going to see through the governance that the CCA is going to be led by your democratically elected leaders, and we also have a formal proposal to set up a joint committee for Team Devon, which I'll come on to. But the principles of inclusivity and partnership are probably echoed in that decision. What we're about here is adding, not taking away, not duplicating. It's about the additionality by working together that we can bring to our economy. And it's absolutely recognising that, you know, good things happen at local levels, and we're not here to take that away or take over from it. Rather, we'd like to harness it and benefit the whole area from good practice at the local level. And as I said before, this is not something we're doing in splendid isolation. It is also about collaborating with our near neighbours across the peninsula, but also the other devolved administrations across England, and obviously with government. So if we move on to the next slide. So this is in diagram form, the proposed governance for the Combined County Authority. It is a standalone separate public authority, which will be set up in law. Therefore, as you would expect, it will have a scrutiny and oversight committee and an audit committee. It will also have a number of advisory panels, which I will come on and talk about. But in terms of the core membership of the Combined County Authority, there will be 3 constituent members for Devon and 3 constituent members for Torbay. The Levelling Up Regeneration Act doesn't allow for districts to be considered, district authorities to be considered as constituent members, but nonetheless, they will be part of the new structure. They will be non-constituent members, and we set aside 4 seats, 2 of which will be taken up by district authority members, 1 of which will be taken up by the Police and Crime Commissioner, and the 4th is there should Plymouth choose to join the Devon and Torbay devolution proposal. There are non-voting associate members as well, 1 for business, 1 for skills or education, and they will be directly nominated by 2 advisory groups that I'll come on and talk to you about. Team Devon was highly successful, grew out of the pandemic. Yourselves, your representatives were an intrinsic part of Team Devon, and we still hope that you will wish to be part of Team Devon going forward, along with district councils, along with National Park and obviously the County Council. To ensure that we try to put a bit of balance into the constitution, which we need to write for the Combined County Authority, and in recognition of the non-constituent status of district authorities, that Team Devon Joint Committee, we feel, is a way in which that we can ensure when the County Council takes forward its votes, that we recognise the Devon position on certain key fundamental issues. But I'm sure you'll have some questions about that, and we can come on and answer those in more detail. On the next slide, I think we start to talk about advisory. Oh, no, we don't. My mistake. This is really what I've just described on the diagram previous. So we'll move on if that's okay, Cara. Thank you. So yes, voting rights. So there are the constituent members vote on reserved matters, and the non-constituent members plus the constituent members vote on general matters. We absolutely fully expect decision making to be done on a consensus basis. But with any good organisation, you need to have a constitution and you need to set out voting rights. We've had this question a fair bit, so I've actually included it on the slide. There is no casting vote for the chair. Because the chair of the combined authority will rotate between Devon and Torbay, I think there has been a degree of anxiety that Torbay, who in some senses is smaller in population than some of our districts, would be able to have a veto or a casting vote on certain key decisions that could impact on districts. That is not the case. If we have a deadlock where we've had to make a decision on voting, then the status quo would prevail. But there are other mechanisms through the Constitution that we can ensure that decisions are made in an equitable fashion, which are in the throes of drafting. Yes, there we are. It says that at the bottom. So next slide, please. So the Joint Committee we would set up under the legislation and the Local Government Act. We propose that every district has a seat at that. We propose that the DALC membership has a seat at that, along with the National Park as well and the County Council. You probably are aware, but recently the Heart of the South West Joint Committee has served its purpose, and that was wound up. That's a decision by the local authority members just after Christmas. So again, this isn't about us setting up a new joint committee in addition to something else. This is doing something for a specific purpose to support the governance within the CCA structure. Next slide, please, Cara. Advisory boards, referred to those on the diagram a few slides previous. We will be setting up with Torbay a growth board or a business board for both local authority areas. We absolutely want to ensure that businesses have a strong voice and guide the thinking and decision making within the combined county authority. The business voice arguably has been provided through the local enterprise partnership to date, and standing up that board in shadow form fairly soon is what our ambition is to do as we take on the local authority, take on the LEP functions. We'll run a transparent process to appoint people onto that board. It would be a board probably around 15 members to make sure that it is of a size and scale that can represent the diversity of business and geography, but also is small enough to have meaningful conversations. It may well also have some delegated functions from the combined authority over time, and it certainly will oversee the legacy activities of the local enterprise partnership, so things like the Growth Hub as an example. The Skills and Employment Board, we're still forming a view on how to stand this up across Devon and Torbay. There isn't one in existence at the moment. It needs to interface with the Employer Local Skills Improvement Partnership that the Department for Education has asked Chambers of Commerce to establish. But this would be very much bringing business and education providers together to address labour market issues and address the skill shortages that obviously will constrain business growth. Housing being a significant part of the devolved functions, we believe we need a housing group to oversee that, led by our district colleagues. And at the moment, the proposal is to build on the housing task force to provide that opportunity to ensure that we have continuity of work done to date in that partnership, but that's open for discussion currently. We've done less work on the last two there, the Environment Net Zero Board and Investment Board, And during the consultation event with our public sector partners, we've also been asked to consider setting up another board that can look at health, wellbeing, linking into employment, so an interface with the integrated care board, which is something we'll obviously consider as part of the consultation response. There will also be a transport board, building very much on the existing governance arrangements that we have in the area across Devon and Torbay, but recognising that peninsular geography is vital to make sure that's functional and effective. Next slide, please, Cara. So we are a public body, we will be receiving public resources, so we will have that scrutiny function and audit function. We will be seeking political balance in the scrutiny function, so that cannot be chaired by one of the lead administrations across Devon and Torbay. So that's one of the first tasks that CCA must do when it is established. Within 2 weeks of being consented by government, it needs to meet and it needs to stand up its scrutiny function. And absolutely, district councils will be represented on both of those two committees, and we can have a conversation to ensure that the local council voice is heard. And all of this will need to be set out in our constitution, as I've said before, that is still being developed. Next slide, please. So that is the proposal. We are into our 3rd week of consulting, and this is a really important event, and there will be others coming up. So if you want to come again, or you have colleagues who can't make this call, there will be other opportunities to hear this presentation and ways in which you can feed in. So there is a lot of detail contained in the proposal. It covers the table of powers in far more detail than I've gone into on this call this evening. And it is open, it's a public consultation. We've had 370 online forms completed thus far. So on the next slide, I think we tell you how you can contribute. So there's the website address for anyone to go on and find out more details. You'll find the proposal, this slide deck. You'll find our draft quality impact assessment and some frequently asked questions and answers, I should say. And we are making sure that we have leaflets covering, well, in fact, our schools as well as our libraries available through our district council offices. Consultation runs for 6 weeks, so it closes on the 24th of March. Next slide, please. There is an email address if you want to message a specific question. There's also that email address if you want to send us a letter of support, which would be very grateful to have. Even if you have concerns, but are happy with the principle, we would still very much need to hear those thoughts and feelings from you. And anyone who would like to pop something in the post, there is a free post address to do so. Next slide, please. So I think this is the concluding slide. So what happens after the 24th of March? Obviously, we go through a period of considering all of the consultation responses, and we produce a summary document that sets out what we've done, what we've learned, and what our response is to that. And that forms part of the County Council and Torbay Council's final decision to proceed with the proposal. Which we expect to take during April, all things being equal. The Secretary of State needs to be satisfied that we've done a thorough, sufficient consultation, and we would expect to have his minded to decision to seek parliamentary approval to stand up the combined authority in May. The consultation isn't a referendum, it is a consultation, and with that in mind, that's why there's not that part in the process. We've been asked that question as well. We then move forward into June, where the government with us, we set out that statutory instrument, and the legislation then gets laid across July, and following the legislative process concluding and all the debates that happen within Parliament and within the House of Lords, the consent is given to under a regulation to set up the combined county authority. At our guess, that could happen in October. Effectively, the CCA comes into being the day after the consent is given. And as I said earlier, within 2 weeks, the CCA needs to be operating. So it needs to have its monitoring officer, its treasurer and its chief exec in place, and it needs to set up its scrutiny function fairly rapidly. So there's quite a lot of mobilisation work being undertaken between now and then. And we've been granted £1 million of revenue support from government to set up the authority and work in shadow form. That will be paid over 3 financial years, so some this year, the bulk next financial year, and the remainder the following year. Going forward, the budget for the Combined County Authority will be top slicing investment from government, and in particular those administrative budgets coming down for us to be able to ensure that we have sufficient resource to run and operate the Combined Authority. We also will be looking at sharing resource. So the economic development functions across Devon and Torbay are responsible for the one in Devon. We won't be standing up a whole new team of economic development professionals to work for the CCA. It will become a joint blended resource, as an example. And that's another question that we've had fairly often. So I think that is the last slide, Karen, is it not? Yay. I'll take a breather.
Thank you, Kerry. So I've already got a few questions starting to come into the chat. This is your opportunity now to use your raise hand icon or get typing in your questions now, and we'll start working our way through them. First one for you, Catherine. Kerry, sorry.
Don't mind.
It's common knowledge that Devon County Council's got a bit of a budget deficit. This has been reported numerous ways. Is this devolution deal going to be plugging that budget deficit?
I think the short answer is no, but I'm going to invite John to comment. We have got a settled budget, but over to you, John.
Yeah, thank you. We've never been more, comfortable with our budget. We've just in the process of coming to the end of this financial year. There will be a report on month 10 going into the cabinet in 2 weeks' time, which will clearly show that this county council does have a control on its budget. We do have an issue with special education needs. Now, that's a different ballgame. And that is something that every local authority with children's services has got. The government changed the rules about 5 years ago. They gave us responsibility in a wider sense for special education. They never funded it. Devon has got an overspend at the present moment that will be probably hitting £160 million at the end of this financial year. Every other local authority also has an overspend. It's reckoned to be something in excess of £3 billion in the country as an entity. Now, Devon is negotiating at the present moment what is known as a safety valve with the government. Firstly, the £160 million is off budget. It's off book, I should say, rather than off budget. It's off book. The same with every other local authority. We're negotiating well with governments at the present moment. We are also having reshaped our children's services, stabilize the people. We are looking to reduce our overspend over the next few years. I can't go into detail with the government agreement because it's not yet signed. I can tell you it is something that is very favorable to the county council. But as far as finances are concerned, Devon has got a very stable local authority finance situation, unlike one or two of our neighbors who are in much more of a pickle than us. This is not about us simply collecting money. This is about a vision. It is about developing for the future the powers for Devon. And I've described it many times before, that this is something different. When it first was promoted by the Prime Minister of the day, I had a meeting with our 8 district councils about a week or so later, and I said, I would like to bid for this. They agreed with me. It is something that we can actually put us closer to working, particularly with civil servants, because parliaments come and parliaments go. But the civil servants are working very closely with us in all departments. I said to the minister this time last year, in February last year, you need us more than we need you now. So she said, what do you mean? I said, a whole pile of your bids that came in were for mayoral systems. They've actually fallen at the first hurdle. They could not get this agreement with their district councils or even through their own councils. So they've had to come back to a tier 2. Of the 9 original or local authorities that were shortlisted with the opportunity to proceed, we were the only tier 2. And we're now where we are. I'm saddened, I'll put it this way, I'm saddened that Plymouth isn't with us, because I would have liked a whole Devon approach. We are keeping the door open for Plymouth, but the longer they stay out, the more difficult it will be for them to come in. At the present moment, they're not looking and moving on that one. But coming back to the original question on finance, Devon has got sound finances, very sound finances in comparison to many of our neighboring local authorities. And you'll see that in a fortnight's time.
Thank you, John. Keeping on the finance theme, as there is a couple of questions on this, Kerry, could you explain what is meant by top slicing?
Yes, indeed. It's how the local enterprise partnership is currently funded. So it takes, I think, 1 or 2% of the funds that it has to run its administrative costs.
Thank you, Kerry. And I've had another question. Apart from the one-off receipt of 16 million, will there be additional money, or will it just be a case of moving the money from national to local? And will the payment making, will it be enough, basically? Okay. 1 million for the setting up costs?
Yeah, so we're confident that the million will be sufficient to do the mobilisation and the setting up and the initial running. We will also be benefiting from some legacy assets from the local enterprise partnerships in year 1 as well. In terms of 16 million, is it enough? No. Was there opportunity to ask for more? Yes, we did, but there isn't any more. We've done as well as any other, devolved opportunity in terms of per head of population. It is within the current spending review, so we fully expect, obviously we have general election to face, devolution is still very much a principle that's supported across the Labour Party. We fully expect that those conversations will happen again in the next spending review to go further and faster. The 15 million, I would agree, is money from central government coming to us. It's our portion, our share of that. But we believe we can be more efficient and effective in directing where that goes, so it would drive better outcomes and better impacts for the same amount of resource. I don't know, John, is there anything you wanted to add to that question?
No, but again, I talk about vision and involvement. If you look up and down the country with the original mayoral system, we're not a mayor, and I'm not looking to become a mayor, but you see the responsibilities that are given extra to all these areas. And I'm convinced that the Southwest will benefit from this. And I likened yesterday with a comment that Devon has been 200 miles from the city of London. And it's a nice place to go on holiday. With the deal we've got now, and the fact that we're talking much more closely with the civil services sector, Devon is now being recognized in the way it should have been recognized a long time ago, as a prosperous place that has ambition. And it's the ambition that we need to get across, the skills and training that we need to take control on to get the skills up, to have the ability then to encourage business to come down here and local business here to expand. That is what the future has got to be like, or you become dormant and stagnate. I don't want to stagnate. I have no intention of letting this county of Devon something I'm very proud of, stagnate either.
Thanks, John. I'm going to jump to somebody with their hand up now. There was a Natalia. I'm assuming your question's now been answered, so I'm going to go to Mike Rowley. You'll need to unmute yourself, Mike.
Mike, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Right, okay. It seems to me that what we're getting here is another layer of government on top of the government we've got. Basically, what we need is less government, not more of it, and we seem to be getting more of it. But my question, I don't think it's going to affect town and parish councils much because there's no devolvement there as far as I can see. It's just a concentration of power, more power with the higher authorities. But my question would be, how much overall will all this cost? What are the savings and where are they going to come from? And has there been a cost-benefit analysis done on it?
Gary, do you want to go first?
Yeah,
I'll pop up.
I certainly can. So we're not at that stage is the short answer, Mike. We have a suggested structure which is benefiting from shared posts across Devon and Torbay. So there's no increase in cost immediately. In terms of your point about being an extra layer, as I said or tried to say, this isn't. Yes, it is a new entity. That is absolutely the case, but it isn't going to have the local enterprise partnership there anymore. There's not going to be a joint committee across the heart of the southwest anymore. So in that sense, there is a removal of one structure and a new one being proposed to be set up. Additionally, we are obviously trying with the advisory boards to work with what exists, what already works, rather than overlapping and duplicating. And certainly not trying to put in any extra bureaucracy and cost. But the actual budget of the CCA needs to be worked through once we've got a final set of proposals agreed with government, so we can properly put the staffing structure in place and the finances to go with it.
Yeah, I'll just add to that we talk about consensus. We're not talking about dictatorial statements, and we're certainly not talking about a mayoral system. But I come back to what I said. Our relationship will change. It is already changing to a certain extent with the way the civil servants are talking to the county council. And this is the benefits that we're going to gain. And I am convinced that gradually we'll have even more responsibility offered to us, and the local authorities will take it on board. It certainly will not be simply an extra layer of government. And if I wanted to be really nasty, when this first started, I could have suggested Devon went for a mayoral system. I didn't, because Devon is too big, in my view, for a mayoral system. The 8 districts in the county were working so well together. We were working before COVID. We worked with the parish councils and the voluntary sector over COVID, and we're still working with all of them still. And on the basis of that, combined working together, consensus working, will benefit the people of Devon. It has to benefit the people of Devon. It has to benefit the people in Torbay too. But I do firmly believe that there's a misconception when you start telling me we're having a new empire being created. There will not be an empire. There will be working relationships, and the working relationships have got to work for the benefit of everybody. But it comes back to what I said at the very beginning. Vision is what I've got, not negativity. And I hope people will get a vision for the future, a vision for their kids and their grandkids, as much as where they are today.
Thanks, John. Kind of keeping with this theme about what the other options could have been, you said we ruled out the mayoral model. There's a couple of suggestions in the chat that surely a local government reorganisation and converting to a unitary might have been a better option for Devon. Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll take that one head on. that would have put blood on the table right across between district and counties. And I hate to say this, but those that have gone unitary, certainly for the first considerable number of years, have not really benefited. Look at Cornwall, look at Somerset, look at Dorset, look at Bournemouth. We're one of only 2 left in the southwest, but we are the biggest. And the fear I've always had with unitary was that the government at that stage would cut us in pieces. There will be a unitary based on Plymouth, a unitary based on Exeter, and a third unitary almost certainly for Northern Devon. What we've got with the county districts at the present moment is capacity and strength. Strength in funds, strength in numbers. We had a minister down not that long ago, and he asked me about the quality of how we got the tarmac that we were using. And I said, we used the metallurgy department to analyze about 6 or 7 different things. You've got a metallurgy department. I said, yes, we're big enough to be able to have an organization like that that can go around also and drill out the tarmac that our utilities are putting in on our roads. And when they haven't done a decent job, tell the utilities to go back and do it again. So, you know, we have capacity. A unitary county of Devon at 900,000 would have been, 800,000 would have been almost a non-starter. I'm convinced, bearing in mind the situation today in relation to where it was, either Plymouth or Torbay would be allowed to stay on their own. We'd have to link with them. We were 1.2 million. We'd be far too big. I want to just over 1.2 million. Splitting us into 3 units would weaken all 3. The unitaries that we've got are normally about 500,000. And quite honestly, they do not have the capacity we have. So that's why I was totally opposed to unitary council.
Thanks, John. Again, similar kind of theme for the next one. Again, a couple of comments in the chat reflecting feelings that parish and town councils feel quite far from the decision making, and the creation of this entity again is the perception is they feel further away rather than closer to the decision making. Could you give some assurances, I suppose, of how parish town councils will be able to engage with this new entity?
But where there's a local decision, there'll be local discussion. Where there's a national or a county decision, the representation of the town and parish councils will be on the discussion document. The government rules are very clear that it's only the primary councils can take some of the decisions, but there are other decisions that we want to discuss and keep attached to our local councils, district and parish and towns. So I don't really think you're going to have much difference to where we are now. What I do know, though, is that we come, the other end is the point, where our relationships in London, our relationships with civil servants, to a certain extent, our relationships with members of parliament as well. But, you know, I do feel, and I've always felt, that we have been, local government is by far the most efficient part of government, in my view. It always has been. It always gets the best value for the pound that anybody can get. So the more that we can get down here and we can allocate it to where we want it to be spent, the better it is for all of us. But no, I don't think the parish and towns will be left out. There's no reason, and we built them into the system for discussion. When we come to the localized work jobs, it will be exactly the same as it is at the moment. The county or the district will talk to the parishes, and the county will definitely be talking to the districts. Kerry, anything you want to add on that one?
No, absolutely. We want to hear the local council voice. You know, that's a voice that we want to hear through Team Devon, and really hope that DELC will take that role up and be your advocates. So very much. And I suppose the only thing I would add is that the Combined County Authority is literally looking at the powers around economic development. It's in transport, housing, I've covered those. So the relationships we have with you in all other regards, whether it's on the health agenda, the education agenda, all of that remain as is. They're not being, you know, disturbed by this proposal.
Thank you. I'm going to go to one of our raised hands now. Helen, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, just wondered how the government governance arrangements had been set. So the 3 people from Devon and 3 from Torbay. I mean, Devon is considerably larger in population than Torbay, and it seems a little bit skewed. If you could explain how that works.
It's what's set out in the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act is the short answer, Helen. We can get you a fuller answer from our monitoring officer who's read the Act from cover to cover, unlike myself. But that is the nature of it. So upper tier authorities are considered constituent members. So there's parity between Devon and Torbay in that regard. Again, our method of trying to address some of that balance is through the Team Devon Joint Committee to consider how the Devon vote is cast, if it ever needs to be cast. But the full intent is that everything will be done collegiately and collaboratively and through consensus.
Thank you. Paul, would you like to ask your question now? You'll need to unmute yourself.
Found the right button. Yes,
Well
I think you've actually covered quite a lot what I wanted to say. Following on from Mike Rowley's comments about town and parish councils, I'm very concerned, as he appears to be, that we are virtually being left out of this as such. Now, Brixham is isolated in Torbay as being the only town council. We're always told that devolution's coming along, giving you more powers, etc., etc. You're basically saying nothing's changed. We're fighting all the time against this middle layer of bureaucracy. Planning, for example, we're just a statutory consultee. I'll give you one quick example. Whole row of houses, one of them did not have a dormer. The owners applied for a dormer. We passed it because it didn't change anything in the street. Torbay turned it down because they didn't like dormers. This is the sort of bureaucracy we're up against all the time. Street cleaning, everything else, we're left out on a limb. And I expect in the rest of Devon, where there are a lot more town and parish councils, are having the same problems. And this whole consultation today, or whatever you're putting today, doesn't seem to change anything for us at our level. And this is what I say, from everything that you set out, and it even says in the paperwork, going to local areas, local people who know their local bits, devolution down to them. But it doesn't seem to be coming down to the local, it comes to the middle level again. We're the ones that should be consulted more and allowed to do things on the local levels, I must admit, going on that area. But that was my comment, and I'll say you have partially covered it as well in what's been going on. But I'd like to hear, John, for example, what you feel about the chances of town and parish councils getting more of the local stuff devolved down to us, which we've always been told is going to happen.
Well, I can't answer that at this stage on this, because we are talking very much about government powers coming to Devon rather than us devolving down lower. Neither can I talk about Brixham. And I take it you are from Brixham from what the discussion there. What I do know is that we do have the district councils. We do have liaisons with the parish and town councils. All right, I will say you are a consultee. You don't actually have powers of decision making, but you are consulted. And I would hope that the district will be listening to what you're saying. I say that nicely, because I do believe that you are. I've always maintained parish councils are the bedrock of democracy. I used to be one. I ceased to be one 5 years ago because, unfortunately, I was away. They took my nomination papers in for me 4 years ago. It was, no, 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago now. They took my nomination papers in for me, and I had signed in the wrong spot. They told me where to sign. I signed it. I was 400 miles away. And I said, well, much as I was prepared to have driven back 400 miles for a county council election, I really couldn't face coming back 400 miles for a parish council. And I've always regretted not being on the parish council, because I do know when you're on the parish council, you know what really is going on. I go to many of my parish councils. I'm not as regular as I used to be. I go to them and I send them a report every month, and they come back to me as soon as they want anything or any help, and I try and help them. But I suppose what I'm trying to say at this stage, this is very much a high level thing at the moment. It's vision, it's power coming to us to improve what we've got and what Devon gets. On the basis of that, there will be some more stuff coming down that will undoubtedly require us to consult with parishes again, as well as the districts. But I can't say you're going to get any powers out of this. You're not. The powers are being retained by the two principal councils, but we want to get the more of Devon involved in this, which is why we have the second organization, which is Team Devon, which includes the Devon Association of Parish Councils and the Dartmouth National Park. And you've got an equal say on that as the 8 district councils, or each of the 8 district councils, to put it in the right order.
John,
Kerry, anything you want to add?
No, not at all, John. Thank you.
Okay.
I think the reflections that I'm picking up on is I think there's tensions and frustration, I think, with the relationships between the tiers of local government as they are currently. And I think there was likely hope that the Devolution Deal agenda might present opportunities to improve those relationships. But as you clearly outlined, that's not what the deal is about. So I think members are seeking assurances, I suppose, that there's recognition that perhaps the relationships aren't where they want them to be, and you want to see some commitment to maybe sort of improving those relationships moving forward.
What I would answer there, Kerry, is very much, sorry, Cara. I've endeavored since we created Team Devon to give a voice and a platform to the town and parish councils. I've gone round to meet the town and parish councils in a district council area, by and large, each year. So, you know, I am listening to what's going on. And on top of that, you and your chairman do have a plate at the table to hear what's going on and give your views. Now, I know you're talking for 400 parishes, I think, or something, assuming everybody signed up. I think if my memory says 408, but I'm not deadly sure on that. But we've given you a table at the plate, a plate at the table. So at least please trust us to work on this, get it through, get the county to develop, and then trickle down power, if I put it this way, and prosperity hopefully will come. You know, Devon is changing, the world's changing. I politely said, and I should probably upset somebody now, that at the present moment, the farmers are almost being paid to look after birds, bees, and butterflies and not grow food. In other circumstances, the monsoons we get today are things we never used to have. Our drainages struggle. We equally struggle with road repairs at the present moment. But we are doing our best to do a lot of this. We have got an opportunity to change the face of Devon, and I think we're daft if we don't take it.
Thanks, John. Going back to some of the questions now in the chat, there are a couple of questions which are querying how a county combined authority will improve the transfer and power of funding compared to the status quo now. You know, why this? Why is this going to be better than sticking with what we've got?
I think the answer I got to give you again is, I say, trust in what's happening. Okay, we're getting the LEP. We were going to get the LEP anyway, but we're getting the LEP back into us. The Local Enterprise Partnership, I always said, was top slicing local government money, giving it to the LEP, and then being allocated out in Buggins' term. And if at the end of a 5-year period they haven't spent all the money, or one of the local authorities that's got the money can't spend it, they come knocking on one of our doors and say, have you got a scheme that you can actually get going almost immediately? And Devon always had a couple of schemes on the top shelf in order to get that done. We won't need that now because it'll be our money and we will be doing it. That's one difference. Another difference will be that we will be working with government. We will be working with civil servants, and we will equally be working together as a partnership. It is a partnership. And the 8 districts in the county will be another partnership. At district level, I pointed out to our district councils, they all tell me they've got a very good relationship with Homes England, and I don't doubt it. What I do know is that over the last 5 years, Homes England have passed back to the Treasury £4.7 billion of money that they could not spend on social housing and low-cost housing. Even last year, it was £1.7 billion. I said to our district councils, if we and you can't work together to get some schemes up, to use some of that money, then we're not doing a good job. So it's up there. We've got to get it to us. We've got to prove that we're capable of doing it. The same goes with transport. The same goes with road, particular road schemes, if I put it nicely. I would love more money for general funds for the road network. And I made the point when I was interviewed with, I was interviewed and asked what I would ask the Prime Minister. And I said, I would like money for roads because the potholes, the road conditions in this county are bad, but they're bad across the country, not just us. They're bad across the country. But I would like a decent dollop of cash because whenever they do the allocation of money, Devon always gets 25% more than any other local authority in the country. When we got 25 million, the nearest was Yorkshire got 20 because we have so many roads and so much of our road network was actually built in the time of the horse and cart. Now they have 30-ton tractors and trailers and 40-ton lorries on. And there's no real foundation in places, which is why everything is breaking up all at the same time. Put that with the monsoon heavy rain that we're having and the inability of our drains to be able to cope. And we have a major problem. But I would hope that we can make cases like that and get extra for Devon. I would hope that we can work together. There is a hope to a certain extent. I make no bones. But I've always said, vision, we've got much further than many of the members of Parliament gave me credit for 2.5 years ago when we put in our original bid. A number was surprised that we got shortlisted. Others equally thought that we wouldn't clear the other hurdles that we've cleared so far. This fundamentally is our last hurdle to clear to get a deal with government to put us in a position where we will be actually working closer with civil services, etc. And the ironic thing is, we're one of 9 that's going forward. There's 2 at least that are shelving their contemplation and moving until after 2025. We're actually in it to go now. There's another queue of home counties, etc., local authorities who are
I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, John. This isn't answering the question. You just seemed to me. I'm sorry. The question was, what's the difference? We know about roads. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
okay,
I think if you could stick to the topic. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to give an overall picture. That was all, Joe. What I would say then, what difference will it make? It's partly we will get some money, seed corn money. We will have the opportunity to take extra responsibilities. We will also have the opportunity in my view, to develop further facilities for Devon. Is that short enough for you, Joe?
Yes, John, that is very helpful. Thank you.
Right.
A slightly different change of track there with the next question, which is about this consultation process. There's a couple of comments relating to this feels like a done deal. Why are we consulting? There's an additional question about actually what does the ordinary person on the street actually recognise about this deal? What's the approach been in terms of outlining the details in the local press and TV to encourage more people to respond to the consultation? And then there's an additional bit to that is, well, what if all the districts oppose it? What happens next? So, so just kind of grouping those. Who would like to tackle that one?
Okay. I'll go to begin with.
Yeah, go on then, John.
Firstly, we've been having some meetings with districts already. I won't say they're necessarily supportive, but they are listening. Is that a fair comment, Kerry?
Yes.
The general public, we'd like to know, we've been asked to consult. We are consulting. We've got a website. We've got information on it. We're advertising it on Devon Live. We've also, I think, got a bit of a leaflet going out, Kerry, somewhere to our village, libraries and things like that.
Libraries, yeah, and
Yep.
it will be going to schools, yeah.
And it's going to schools as well. So, you know, we're doing our best to get the message out. We can only lead so far on this. There has been a number of comments already made, and I have no doubt closer to the time there will be some more comments in the news media, if I put it that way. But we're trying to get to the parish councils, for the parish councils as well as the district councils and the general public, to pass the message further out to the general public.
So a call to action for everyone here today then to share the details in their communities.
Like I said, all parish councils will be sending a report, I would think, to their parish councils, in which case publicise the fact the meeting's actually taking place and consultations are needed.
Thanks, John. Okay, another question now. What is Plymouth's reason for not joining in with the County Combined Authority?
Plymouth felt that on transport, they would be a loser. What they were reluctant to do was become into a joint combined authority transport arrangement. They have got a number of bids in at the moment for the city, and they were fearful that if we became a combined authority, they might lose some of that money. We tried to assure them that all the bids that were in at the present moment, if they come in 6 months or 12 months' time, we would not be looking at taking that away from them. But that was the major problem. Plymouth felt that coming in with Devon and Torbay was a retrograde step from a unitary council that had worked hard for a number of years to become a unitary council again. Bearing in mind, it was an authority in its own right. It became part of Devon County in 73. In 99, it went out again to become a unitary council with its Lord Mayor. So it's very much status as much as anything else.
And does Devon and Torbay feel disadvantaged now in any way that we haven't got a whole pan-Devon sort of devolution deal?
I wouldn't say disadvantaged, I would say sad. And I honestly believe, I know that the business community in Plymouth tried to write to the Secretary of State for Transport to ask him to make special exceptions for Devon or for Plymouth in relation to the Devon Torbay bid. And the Secretary of State refused. So then the business community came and saw the county council and asked that A, we carry on, but B, will we keep the doors open for Plymouth? And we agreed to. The minister has asked us to do the same, and we've agreed to do that too. So there's still a possibility they could opt back in if they wanted to. But the longer they leave it, the more difficult it will be, because when we start signing agreements with government, we can't unscramble those and re-sign them because Plymouth want them changed.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Another question specifically for you, John, from someone in the chat. It's what are your 3 biggest concerns about this deal?
My 3 biggest concerns. That's an interesting question. I've never been asked that before. I suppose failure, bearing in mind how long I've been working at it, that has to be the first one. Secondly, that the people of Devon won't kind of support it. Because I honestly do firmly believe it's something that is advantageous for Devon for the future. That's two. The third one, I haven't really got one, if I'm honest, because those are the worries I've got. I am so set, I suppose, Kerry would say this, I'm so set on getting or trying to get this deal through that I've kind of, I set 3 targets for the council over the next 2 years, or 2 years, and we're in it, the second one now. One was to get the county back into a balanced budget. Secondly, to get Devo moving still. And thirdly, to get support from government on our safeguarding special education needs overspend. Now, at the moment, the budget that was set the other day is a very good budget for Devon. It's 746 million quid off the top of my head. We're not taking any money out of reserves. We've actually probably going to be in a position to put some back into reserves this year. Our safety valve, government are talking to us seriously. Devo, people are talking to us seriously. So my view, if I put it this way, is Devon County is facing the right direction at the present moment in a way that probably we're recovering from COVID in a way many of our neighboring local authorities would be only too happy to be in the position of. And it is a fact that we're recovering from COVID, because at COVID time, we were chucked money, we needed it, we spent it, but we're now coming back to the efficient, smaller local authority that we were pre-COVID.
Thanks, John. I hope that answered your question, Kate. The question's now moving on to housing. So what mechanisms are envisaged to ensure the district councils and the combined county authority are cooperating and working together over housing and ensuring that there is appropriate housing stock with the appropriate tenures available to our communities? And there was a further question that also said, around tackling some of the issues that are with the developers themselves, as opposed to the challenges within the authorities.
Okay, my first answer is county no longer is responsible for housing. The last structure plan that was produced by Devon County in 1996, I think it was 95, 97. Now it's responsibility of the district councils. The county will work with and encourage districts to work together. We need the infrastructure, but the actual housing design of the housing land availability is very much a district council responsibility. We will support the district councils, as I said earlier, with Homes England, but they are the people that will be the housing authorities. They still are, and they will remain so. That is one of the reasons why Devon has a 2-tier authority set up. The districts are working together. The local plans that are drawn up and working at the present moment have seen very clearly that Exeter, East Devon, and Cambridge are working together. Southampton, West Devon, and Plymouth are working together. And those are the ones I can directly talk about because they're ones in my area. I do know equally, though, that North Devon and Torbay are working together on this, and probably Mid Devon too. But that is their responsibility, not ours. But we will encourage them. We will get and hopefully work out infrastructure. Builders are a different kettle of fish. I'm interested the government is doing a review on whether or not the builders are working as a cartel. And that's something that's come out in the last few days. What I do know, and I've said this to my district council colleagues, is when people ask for a large building project and you specify 20, 25 or 30% social low-cost housing. And they accept that and take the planning. Too many are coming back within a short while to say, this is not viable, we've got to reduce somewhere. And I said to the districts, you've got to, in my view, stick up and say, you agreed it, you stick with it. They said, well, I understand. And they said to me, well, if we do that, they then go to appeal and we lose all of our benefits, or a lot of our benefits that we got on Section 107, 106 agreements. I don't know. What I do know is that at some stage, the price of housing is geared to a certain extent on three things: the price of the land, the cost to build, and the profitability of the developer. The developers are, by and large, working at a 25 to 30% profit margin. The more they pay for their land, the higher price the houses are. But that profitability line seems to be pretty constant. So this is one. The big builders are too big. We lost the small, medium-sized builders in the recession back in 2005, 7, I suppose it was. We have a nucleus of very large builders at the present moment, and they almost think that they've got, if not a monopoly, a control, which at times I think is unhealthy.
Thanks, John. Keeping on to the theme of housing, Kerry, you mentioned earlier that there would be a housing advisory board, which would likely linked with the task force that already exist. Are there other mechanisms like that, or any other structures that you're envisaging that will just help with that joint working around housing?
So I think the other obvious way in which we will bring all that together is the CCA will set the economic strategy, for want of a different description, for the area. And within that, obviously, there would be key infrastructure priorities, which will then be the blueprint to engage with government to secure the right investment to deliver our vision for our area. So Homes England is part of that conversation. So as John's referred to, a lot of money has gone back to Treasury, which we could have spent directly to support affordable housing, not just the bits that make the profit, as John has rightly said. So I think the whole concept of devolution, with that combined authority having that single vision for what we want to achieve for our economy, built up from views on this call through the Joint Committee, etc., and then being able to use that as the blueprint with government is another mechanism. I also mentioned that the Housing Commission is actually name checked in the proposal. Through Lord Best, we do have that bit of leverage with government, with our current MPs, and I think that's another part of the policy setting environment. And again, I saw in chat there's been quite a few references to the lack of rental property, and perhaps now's not the time to debate second home council tax and how those sums get reinvested. But that again is another mechanism through which we can ensure that we have that strong engagement, working to a vision for what we want to achieve as a local partnership. Hopefully that further enhances what John said.
Kerry, can I just go on from there and say it was come out of Team Devon, particularly led by the South Hams, that we were looking at the housing set up in Devon. She went and spoke to a committee in the House of Lords. Exeter University took that on board, set up Lord Best, who is down here with a housing commission. He's been coming down every other month, looking at different parts of Devon. He has certainly brought together Homes England, the voluntary sector, and also the social housing providers. And he's having another meeting shortly with the large landowners of Devon to see if they can help at all on social housing. But his report is going to be out in the next 12 to 18 months. And it will be focused entirely on Devon. He's been in the South Hams, he's been in Barnstable and Ilfracombe. He's been in the Exeter sub-region, and he's been in East Devon. So, you know, he's looking, and he is known as one of the experts, if I put it this way, on housing, especially social housing in the House of Lords. And he's chairing this committee, and he is bringing in to discuss in Devon some of the really large national players. And it's been quite interesting to see just who has turned up at his request. Now, that is a spin-off from Team Devon.
Okay, thank you. Paul, you have another question?
Yes, thank you. John, you referred earlier on some of your concerns that the public of Devon and Torbay may not be on your side. Can I suggest that one of the things you need to do is get your town and parish councils on your side by firstly giving them confidence that you're going to be acting on their behalf. And one of the things that I raised earlier, we're not getting anything devolved down to us. Speak to them, ask what they want, and try and build this into the plan. Because if you get your town and parish councils on your side, 408 plus Brixham, 409, whatever it is, we got a big voice.
That's right.
At the moment, we're not happy with the way the system is working. I feel that if you look at it from the bottom end, it's great what you're doing at the top end, but it's like a lot of big organisations. Too many chiefs and not enough Indians. We're not being listened to. We want to be able to do simple things in our towns. We can't even put a bench in the town centre without having to go to our lead council to get planning consent, which can take months just to replace a bench in the town centre. And I expect other things like this can be brought up by other councillors who are in town and parish councils. We need to have those sort of powers devolved down to us, to the people who know their areas. And if you can put something like that in this consultation, you'll get a lot more backing, and we can feed it out to our members, our local electorate that put us in position to run our towns. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. Can I say that I will make sure that when we discuss this with the district councils, because most of what you're asking for there is district councils rather than the county council, but we can certainly feed that back to the district councils and see what they say and see whether or not some of this can be streamlined. As a county, we've tried to streamline some of our stuff. Like, you know, I use it nicely. I can say the snow patrols and the flooding and the road mending, where people want to take it up, and the three P's, I think it is, for the footpaths, etc. But what you're talking about, unfortunately, is planning, and that is district. But what I can do, and I would take on behalf of all of you here today, and I get the sense this is something you're all feeling strongly about, I will make sure that when we meet Team Devon next time, that I will broach this with the leaders of the 8 district councils, that there is a feeling at parish level that you could do with, even if you can't get more power, you want more speedy action, I think is the phrase I would use. But let's see what happens. Okay.
I'm just mindful of the time at the moment. Kerry, John, you're not needing to rush anywhere, are you? Because there's still a few more questions in the chat.
I think we're both okay.
Okay, all right, just checking. I've got a question now which is talking about upskilling and better prosperity. there's concern that 16 million is not going to be enough, and to create the jobs that are needed down here. And upskilling on its own is not enough. So what are your views on what success is going to look like in terms of investment in skills?
So the 16 million is a one-off capital investment. The adult education budget is 15. So sorry if I confuse with the numbers, because they are quite similar. So in terms of putting that 15 million to good use for adults, that's about making sure that our colleges and our training provider network offer the right courses for the right careers that support our businesses, which is not rocket science after all said and done. Well, it might be rocket science for some businesses, but you know what I mean. At the moment, there is a gap between what our businesses say they want in terms of skills and the opportunities for young people and the careers for young people versus what sometimes is offered through the school system or indeed the college system. So what we will have the opportunity to do is to ensure that we bring those two views together, that we have a skill strategy to underpin the economic strategy for the region, and that we use that again to drive out the priority for where that money is best allocated, best spent. It's not the only source of money. We also have a free skills programme for jobs as well, which has been added into the devolution offer. You'll see that in the deal text. And then there's the UK Share Prosperity Funding, which at the moment we're still waiting to see what happens in March 25 with that. But the first round of that money was not allocated to skills, and we understand that the second wave will be allocated to skills. So there's further opportunity to work with local areas to work out what the local skills are that they will need. There's also the careers advice and guidance in itself, and one of the functions that the LEP has been performing is the careers hub. So that is something that will become under the control of the Combined County Authority, and that is about engaging employers in the curriculum within schools. It's also about making sure that our young people become informed consumers about all the types of jobs and career opportunities that might exist, including vocational courses, not just pathways onto higher education, which of course suits some, but not everyone. So devolution isn't the offers that are in this proposal isn't everything that we do within the local area already, but it's about having that concerted effort with all of us pulling in the one direction, having set what we believe are our priorities to be. I hope that goes some way to answering that question.
It sounds like there's already jobs available. It's just our community is not necessarily geared up to apply or to meet those jobs.
We do almost have full employment, but we don't have necessarily the right wages that go with those jobs to every degree. At the moment, we have people with complex needs who perhaps are not able to work. So it's how do we encourage people to return to the labour market in a way that they feel that they can contribute. Some of it's about confidence building, some of it's about asking employers to make adjustments. So yes, there's still lots and lots of work to be done around that particular agenda.
Can I just add to that, Cara, the apprenticeship schemes, because they are going well at the present moment, but it is another way of people getting back into employment as well as learning skills as a young person. And it certainly is something that I firmly believe should be encouraged.
Thanks, John. It was Jo who posed that question, and her hand's popped up now, so I'm assuming there's a follow-up. Over to you, Jo.
Yes, thank you. What I wanted to say was I've looked at other devolution deals and I've looked at the evidence around getting what you've said, the prosperity to Devon, and actually upskilling alone is not enough. In fact, you can increase the amount of level 4 qualifications and still have a brain drain to the southeast without the investment in jobs and industry in areas like, especially like Torbay. You're not going to have And this is why I posed the question earlier on about what is the measurables? What does success look like? Because I've heard a lot of talk about what you want to do, but not how you're going to measure it and what the outcomes are going to be. And I really want to hear that detail. Kerry mentioned earlier on about a strategy for skills. You know, when are we going to see that? What does it look like? Are we part of that? What is that? Because that seems to be hidden at the moment behind a lot of words about prosperity and ambition, and actually what are the measurables and what are the outcomes, and can you point to other areas across the UK that have got this fantastic prosperity that we've been promised here? Thank you. That was my follow-up, Laura.
That's fine, Joe. The short answer is around, will you have a chance to be involved? Absolutely. I mean, we do have existing strategies that the Local Enterprise Partnership has crafted, but we are revisiting those with employers through the Local Skills Improvement Partnership, and then we need to bring in the college element to work alongside that. I can't give you a firm deadline, but I would have thought that this would be absolutely something that the Combined County Authority would be challenged to do by government within its first few months of existence. Your point there around upskilling isn't enough. I accept that argument. It's a fair challenge. We know that we produce enough technically qualified individuals through our college system, through our education system, to fill all of the technical skills gaps that our businesses are crying out for. But we don't retain those youngsters. So there is something around still the opportunities that sit outside. If you want to cut your career in photonics, which is something obviously Torbay is really keen on doing, you may be actually persuaded to go and work in Leicester, where there's a stronger business cluster. And you might also recognise that if you work in Birmingham, you will earn a higher wage than what you will in Devon, and the house prices being what they are in Devon, your quality of life is obviously another question. So the strategy needs to be multifaceted. It's not just about skills strategy in and of itself. It's how we invest in the infrastructure, the housing piece, which we've probably covered at length already this evening. But it's also then how we up, our ambitions around our own businesses. We do not create the wealth as the public sector. We provide the right conditions against which businesses can adopt and thrive and do what they do best. So it's also around working with the Department of Business and Trade to see how we can bring more innovation funding in, so we can try new business startups, etc. Our self-employment levels actually took a bit of a dive after the pandemic, and we don't have that level in our economy to the same extent we used to do as well, similarly with our business startups. So there's something we need to do working with our business sectors. We're running one of these events next week with the Chambers of Commerce, Federation of Small Business, Institute of Directors, South West Business Council, to really grasp their thoughts and feelings on this, but also to gain their buy-in and engagement to work alongside it. And that business advisory board is where a lot of that good knowledge, expertise will come forward to ensure that the CCA is guided in the right direction in making the priority settings and the investment decisions.
Can I just come in again on this and say, we already have some world-leading companies in Devon that people don't really know about, including 2 in Ilfracombe, in Barnstable, and in the Exeter sub-region, and on the outskirts of Plymouth. What we've got to have, and I totally agree with Kerry, we don't create jobs, we create the climate for jobs to be created. We need service land, we want it at a reasonable price, and we want to sell Devon as a place it's worth coming to set up business. And that's part and parcel of what this is all about.
Thank you. I've had, did you want to come back on that one?
Yeah, I was just going to say to Joe, I mean, I'm really happy to carry on that conversation. It's a rich conversation, so we could take that offline at any time you like. And I don't know which part of Devon you are representing, but it's.
I'm a parish councillor in King's Kerswell, Kerry, and obviously we're really keen to understand how things are going to pan out for us, because we lose quite a lot of our young people and they never come back. And as for us, obviously housing is a part of that, because as my own 27-year-old and 29-year-old children are seeing that their wages don't cover their housing costs, and so they move away and then they don't come back. And I did the same thing, but you know, I did exactly the same thing for work. So for me, it's all about the young people are upskilling, you know, and I absolutely get how you want people to encourage people to go back into employment. And I know there is an element of this around the DWP, but like you said, there is high employment already. And so how do we, you know, we've already got that, you know, wonderful careers work going on. So what are the added benefits of this? I'd like to do that. Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you my email.
Yeah, do that.
Sounds like a good conversation to come. Another issue that's been raised is around youth services, and with more powers and funding being devolved down to Devon, will there be more resources for youth services?
Youth services in and of themselves aren't part of the devolution conversation, but obviously support for our young people through education and making sure that we look after and do the right things in terms of social mobility for our youngsters. I think the youth service, you know, plays an important part in that. But I suspect that's related directly to the County Council's budget setting process. Youth services, so I'll hand that one over to John.
Thank you, Kerry. It is true. We do not have a universal youth service any longer, but we do have a targeted youth service. And the fact we've actually got that is something that many other local authorities in the country, as well as the Southwest, do not have. And we do actually work with the youth, but it's very much targeted to areas where there is issues. We have had trouble not recently, but 2 years ago, with the issue of drugs and coming in from the Southwest into the Southwest from the Midlands. And the youth service did go in there with the support of the police, etc., and got our young people clear of what was going on. And a whole team of people finished up in court. But no, we do have that, but that is a county council role. That is not anything to do with devolution, if I'm blunt on this. This is very much a county role, working with schools, working with young people. But we do have a targeted youth service still, and it does work well. The county lines thing was stamped fairly quickly.
Okay, thank you for that response. We've had a comment here from somebody who has concerns that the investment from the devolution deal and everything like that will be very South Devon centric, obviously with our big settlements in the south of the county. And they didn't feel anything had been reflected tonight, which was suggesting that there's going to be investment in the north of the county. Can you do anything to dispel those concerns?
Yes, I certainly can. We've held one of these events with Northern Devon Futures and the Northern Devon business grouping, and you know, we absolutely recognise that there are some unique sectoral opportunities in the north, like floating offshore wind and renewables, the pharmaceutical sector, some of the advanced manufacturing opportunities around Appledore as well, particularly, which has received some levelling up funding. And how we move forward with sort of clean maritime activity. So all of those we recognise, you know, just because I happen to work out of Exeter doesn't mean that we only think south or the city. And I'm trying to get to the north on a more regular basis. So I think it's fair to say, as an economy team, we absolutely recognise the strengths of North Devon. We also recognise its challenges. And I don't think there would be any suggestion in anything of what we've proposed why there should be something more for the south and less for the north. In terms of some of the opportunities around skills, I mean that's universal across the county. You know, so happy to pick that conversation up with colleagues in the north just as much.
Yes. Can I just say that Petrock has got a very good reputation as well out of North Devon. You know, I do hear this occasionally about the south is unfairly treated. Well, the north is unfairly treated for the south. but I would argue it's not. And I would actually argue, if you look at investment generally, we try and put it where the needs are. If there's a need in the north, you get it. If there's a need in the south, you get it. But we don't deliberately select any particular place over another. And I kind of get that comment, and I could say again, North has got the node. The node was actually doubled in size nearly, no sooner had it been built, because of demand in the north. So, you know, this is places where you have the opportunity to embryonically create business. And they go in there, and then hopefully they prove and go on further. So, you know, no, I hear what you say, but I can't honestly say that that in my view is that is quite justified.
Thank you. Trying to tackle a few points again in one question, but are there potentially going to be any downsides with committing to a combined county authority structure? I mean, the whole devolution process to date has felt quite top down. You know, it's been led by central government policies. There was a menu of options which counties could consider. If we set up this structure and then government says, spending review comes along, we're not going to give you any more money, are we going to be a bit stuck?
Well, it's not quite word for word, but the Labour Party manifesto speaks around devolution in a very, very similar way to the current government's policy on devolution. I therefore have confidence, I don't know what John's view is, that setting up the combined county authority as a structure actually provides that opportunity for ongoing investment, ongoing conversation, ongoing dialogue with government. Not having that structure doesn't give you that opportunity. In all of the conversations we've had with the combined county authorities across England, you know, when we've tried to learn from them, as you would expect, the overriding message is that your devolution, the deal that you do on day one, is only a start. You will see many other things come through. You no longer have to compete. You will be given, awarded funding. You will actually co-design that, sat around a table with government. So it's, you know, to date we've had to put forward, you know, competitive bids into a small, you know, an ever declining pot of money, whereas we see devolved administrations given those opportunities and in fact probably pre-designed them. So whether it's investment zones, whether it's some of the housing funding, whether it's some of the transport funding, they are often predetermined in terms of what the combined authorities get, and then whatever's left over becomes a competitive bidding round. So I'm confident that the structure will give us all of those opportunities rather than give us a white elephant, which I think is that behind your question. But I'm sure John has a view on that.
Before I just let you in, John, I'm just sort of adding on it. It's just like, do you have any fear or risks, concerns about functions being devolved which then don't see the funding follow in future? I suppose.
I think the answer I've got to give to that is no, I don't, because I do not believe government would do that to local government. But having said that, what I will say, and I tried to say it earlier as well, we're in a different position to a large extent now since we started this, because we're much closer to the civil servants. And governments come and go, but civil servants are constant. We've been talking to a civil servant last week, who I knew 14 years ago when we had another issue. And he actually came to Devon this time. It's a very senior civil servant, and spoke to our officers about devolution. Now, I don't believe the officers would have done this unless they believed that Devon's got something to offer. We would never have been shortlisted if we weren't something or they felt there was something we had to offer. As I say, originally we'd be the only tier 2 that was shortlisted out of 9 local authorities. Downsides, I can't honestly, as I come back, see any downsides. What we need to do is carry on, work together, and get the deal done. And from there, I am convinced that things will get better. I look at, as I say, other parts in the Midlands and the north of England. Scotland, where our chief executive was, did a deal 5 years ago. The amount of follow-up deals that came through were quite substantial. So yeah, I firmly believe this has got to be the way forward for local government. And I firmly believe that progressively, national government will be doing this for us. Because the other problem is, national government itself is no longer able to cope in the way it used to be able to do. And we need the parish down with us.
Okay, thank you, John. I think I may have got to the end of the questions. I think I've grouped several of the comments in the chat together, but there might be a couple more, but one more, and then I'll ask about the group again. But you mentioned earlier that letters of support could be sent in to the email and the free post thing. I'm assuming that any letters of objection equally go to the same places.
Yeah, so you can fill in an online form whether you support or don't, and if you want to send a letter of non-support, absolutely. It's a public consultation. It's free and open, all views. And so I think somebody asked about, what happens if people vote against it. It's a consultation. It's not a referendum, and we've got to pass 3 tests for government. We've got to show that there is economic, social and environmental benefit, that there is we're doing this across a sensible community identity, and that this is about good local government operation in terms of recognising that we are acting with probity and all those good things. So all of that detail is on the website, if it's not in the presentation. So there's a lot more information there, Cara, that people can give consideration, and Dalk can give consideration to if you're thinking of submitting a response on behalf of all. Yeah.
Thank you. And again, I'm reiterating to members here today that the slides, this recording and links to the relevant websites will all be shared afterwards. I think I saw Philip's hand pop up briefly.
I saw Philip's hand up too.
It's I'm sorry I had to join a bit late, but Cara is aware why. And I'm trying to, I hear questions about we need the jobs for the skills we wish to develop, but it hasn't been tied in with the Freeport. Surely that's going to bring some jobs to the area. I know it's one specific part of Devon, but is there no sort of tie-in or relevance of what's going to happen, sort of Sherford, Plymouth way?
Yeah, so the devolution absolutely covers the whole of Devon and Torbay, so it would be consistent with the geography of the Freeport and the outer area of Freeport. I don't know if you joined where we were talking about the fact that this isn't set up in isolation to other partnerships. So it would work alongside the Great Southwest as an example, and it absolutely would work with and support the Plymouth and South Devon Freeport. So it's not to compete, it's to align and add value. Yes, John, sorry, I cut across you.
And to employ local people.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, we're a partner in the Freeport. Me and my team support the Freeport. And,
it's just I hadn't heard it mentioned.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Fair comment.
Yeah. I think I've got through all the questions. There are a couple of comments in the chat, but I'll make sure I save the chat and send that over to you, Kerry, so you've got.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you.
So we are sort of 2 hours in. Everyone's probably getting a bit tired, but last chat, has anybody got any other questions or want to highlight anything I may have missed in the questions at all? I'm not seeing hands popping up. I'm not seeing anything in. So I'd like to then just say thank you to Kerry and John for giving up your time this evening to come and talk to us and for answering the questions. Thank you so much. For anyone that you are free to leave at this point, but for anyone that is interested in hanging on, I'm happy to outline some of the thoughts that are going into sort of doubts thinking. It's not gone through the board or anything yet, so it's an early indication of some of our thoughts. If anyone wants to stay on and listen to that, you're welcome. But otherwise, if you're done and dusted, I'll end the recording here and just thank everyone for their participation.
So, Cara, I assume you'd like John and I to depart for that part.
Yes.
Probably best, just so
That's
people
right.
feel like
I
they
think definitely. But can I thank you, Cara? Can I thank all the participants as well for staying up, asking the questions, and say we've endeavored to answer them as honestly as possible. With due respects, Joe, I do talk a lot sometimes, but sometimes I'm never quite sure how far I'm going to get in cover. But thank you all for participating, and I hope we have at least given you a somewhat better idea of what this is about. Thank you, and good night.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye-bye.